It is August 30th, 2010. Minecraft is still in alpha. No villages, no strongholds, no nether. The game is barely playable. What it does have is fog. Now pay attention to this, because the fog is a very important part of our story. A streamer named Copeland is building a house on a mountaintop, playing live for his Brocraft community like it is any normal afternoon. He's wandering around his world, chatting with viewers, deliberately avoiding one particular room in his base. He has been avoiding it for almost 2 hours. He talks about a ghost he has been seeing lately, calls it
Him! He is him!
Then he walks into that room. Standing directly in front of the door is a figure with the default Steve skin and 2 completely white eyes. He starts screaming and ends the stream.
Cope's finding
What happened over the next 14 years is one of the strangest stories in gaming history. A myth built from a blurry screenshot, a retextured painting, and a message board post that should have been forgotten by September. Instead, it became the most famous ghost in gaming. Mojang removed it from the game dozens of times. A volunteer research group spent months cracking open a decade-old world file just to find the exact pixel where it all started. And the stream that launched it all disappeared for 14 years before turning up on someone's hard drive the day after a documentary about it went live. This is the full story of Herobrine. But to understand how a hoax became a legend, we have to start before it even had a name. On July 30th, 2010, someone took a screenshot. It was an ordinary Minecraft landscape, a hill, a few trees, a chicken standing in the foreground doing nothing, and in the background, barely visible through the dense fog on a slow machine set to tiny render distance, a figure, standing still on the hilltop, default Steve skin, just white eyes instead of the regular ones Steve has. Nobody noticed initially. The image sat somewhere, unread, in a game that most people outside very specific internet circles had not even heard of yet. The very next day, July 31st, a Minecraft forum user named Flaky posted something that had been copied from 4chan's video game board. A short account from a player who had gone into a cave while Disc 13 was playing on a jukebox. In the dark, at the edge of torchlight, they saw 2 white eyes looking back at them from the shadows, and the player called it what they saw. White eyes. That's it. The white eyes story barely spread, but it planted something. Because 4 weeks later, the 2 ideas merged. The figure on the hill, the eyes in the cave. Someone gave it a name. Herobrine. The story appeared on 4chan's paranormal board on August 31st, 2010. It contained the original screenshot from July 30th and a detailed account of what the writer claimed to have experienced. They were in a new single-player world when something moved in the fog. They thought it was a cow and went toward it to get leather, but it was not a cow. A figure with the default Steve skin and completely empty white eyes stared back at them, then turned and ran into the fog before they could get close. This was weird, but they kept playing. And then they started finding things that should not have been there. Long 2x2 tunnels carved through solid rock going absolutely nowhere. Small pyramids built in the middle of the ocean out of sand. Trees with every single leaf stripped off. Constructions that the world generator does not produce, that they definitely had not built, and that served no obvious purpose. They posted on the Minecraft forum asking if anyone else had seen the same thing. Their post was deleted within 5 minutes. They posted again, deleted even faster. Then a private message arrived from a username nobody could find the profile for. One word: stop. And when they tried to look up the profile, it returned a 404. The account did not exist. Someone then reached out by email and told them that other players had been seeing the same figure, that people had tracked the name Herobrine to a Swedish gamer, and that the Swedish gamer was connected to Notch, the developer of Minecraft, as his deceased brother. The writer emailed Notch directly. They asked if he had a brother. The reply: I did, but he is no longer with us. That was the whole story. A blurry screenshot, strange structures, a deleted post, a message from a dead account, and a 2-sentence email from the game's own developer that nobody could verify and nobody could disprove. By itself, it was a solid creepypasta and nothing more. A story designed to travel. But stories like this need a spark to become something bigger, and Herobrine's spark was just preparing to go live. Let's go back to Copeland from earlier. Copeland ran a Minecraft channel called Brocraft. He found the Herobrine story on 4chan's video game board and liked it enough to want to do something with it. So for fun, he opened Photoshop, took a screenshot of his current Minecraft world, and dropped the herobrine figure into the background, just to see what his chat would do. The reaction was good. People were unsettled. People were excited. So Copeland built a plan. He created a painting texture in Photoshop with Herobrine's face on it. He placed that painting inside a work-in-progress room in his Minecraft world, a room he had been meaning to furnish. On August 30th, 2010, he went live. He played completely normally for close to 2 hours. He built, he chatted. He mentioned him a few times, that ghost he had apparently been seeing. He walked near the door of the room with the painting multiple times and moved away each time. He was engineering 2 hours of tension without anyone knowing there was a punchline at the end. Then, at 20 minutes and 42 seconds, he walked through the door. The painting was directly in front of him, a flat printed image of Herobrine on a wooden frame. At that resolution, on that hardware, in a game made entirely of blocks, it looked exactly like a person standing in his house.
Him! He is him! Ah! Cope's finding me.
The stream ended. He came back online a few hours later. He had removed the painting and reverted all the textures back to normal. He played through the same room again. Nothing was there. He announced on stream that he was going to delete the entire world and would never load it again. He did it live in front of his audience. Then he dropped a link into chat. The page opened to a GIF of Steve's face. The pixelated eyes had been replaced with two realistic, moving human eyes. Below the image was a dense block of scrambled characters. If you removed every non-alphabetical character and read what was left, the message said this: "It has been reported that some victims of torture during the act would retreat into a fantasy world from which they could not wake up. In this catatonic state, the victim lived in a world just like their normal one, except they weren't being tortured. The only way they realized they needed to wake up was a note they found in their fantasy world. It would tell them about their condition and tell them to wake up." That page gave Herobrine a second name that night, Him, with a capital H. It stopped feeling like a ghost story and started feeling like something that was already watching you. But then, the internet reacted. Some people called it fake on site, others were not sure. And then, another Brocraft streamer named Patimus uploaded his own sighting the very next day. Patimus staged his encounter differently. He placed Herobrine standing in the middle of a lava field. The moment Herobrine appeared on screen, the game crashed. Copeland was publicly annoyed. He called Patimus a fraud who had staged a fake sighting to ride the wave, while simultaneously insisting his own stream had been completely genuine. That conflict accidentally made everything more convincing. Because if even people inside the Herobrine community were arguing about which sightings were real, the whole thing looked less like a coordinated hoax and more like an ongoing, unresolved mystery that different people were bumping into from different directions. After this, a lot would go on to change. Herobrine was about to leave the Minecraft forum entirely, and when a myth escapes its original container, it stops being controllable. Notch heard about the White Eye Miner story not long after it started circulating. On IRC, he wrote that there was no such mob, then immediately said he totally should add one, and joked about adding entire villages of white-eyed humans. At MinecraftCon 2010, held the day after Copeland's stream sent Herobrine into the mainstream, Notch was asked directly if Herobrine was real, and he replied with something which would go on to add way more fuel to the fire. At first he confirmed it was a hoax, but also said that soon it might not be. He was playing with it, and the players took it as confirmation that something was in development, that Herobrine in some form was going to end up in the game. In October 2010, a Minecraft wiki administrator pressed harder on IRC. The community was getting frustrated. Notch replied that he had no plans of adding Herobrine as is. 2 words, as is. Players pulled those 2 words apart for months. If he said as is, that meant a different version was still possible. That meant something was coming. Every time Notch opened his mouth about Herobrine, the myth grew. Then Mojang did something nobody expected. In the changelog for beta 1.6.6, released in May 2011, buried under real bug fixes and gameplay adjustments, appeared a single line: Herobrine removed. They had never added him. There was nothing to remove, but they removed him anyway. and they kept doing it. Almost every major Minecraft update from that point on contained that line somewhere. Sometimes multiple times in one changelog, sometimes with extra editorial notes attached. The Xbox 360 edition removed him in TU3 in July 2012, then removed him again in TU5. Scrolls, a completely different Mojang game that has nothing to do with Minecraft, removed him in its own patch notes under the miscellaneous section. The official strategy from Mojang seemed to be deny everything, remove nothing, and put his name in every changelog until the joke becomes the lore. Every time a new update released, a new generation of players saw Herobrine removed for the first time and asked the same questions. Why does Mojang keep removing him if he isn't in the game? Was he in the game? Who even is he? There is no satisfying answer to that question, and unsatisfying answers are exactly what myths run on. The first Herobrine mod came from a user called Kelly in December 2010, 3 months after Copeland's stream. It was a server plugin, and it introduced elements that nobody had written into the original creepypasta. The redstone torches that mark Herobrine's territory, the shrine you have to build to summon him. Those details came from a mod. They were not in the 4chan post, but within a year, most players treated them as part of the original story. The more famous standalone mod came on July 30th, 2011, from a user called Burner. YouTube showcase videos picked it up fast. Now players could have actual encounters in their own worlds. Herobrine would appear behind trees at the edge of render distance. He would stand at the end of long hallways. He would vanish the second you looked directly at him. Every encounter was designed to feel exactly like the conditions described in the original 4chan post. For kids who were 9 or 10 playing Minecraft in 2011 and 2012, the line between the mod and the base game did not exist. They would watch a sighting video on YouTube, download the mod, have a genuine jump scare, and then tell their friends about it as if it had happened to them in their own unmodified world. The story kept rebuilding itself through every person who passed it along, mixing the original creepypasta with mod behavior with YouTube acting until nobody was entirely sure which version was the real one. Then there was the music. Disc 11 had been in the game since September 29, 2011. Unlike every other music disc, it does not play music. It is exactly 1 minute and 11 seconds long, which nobody missed as a detail. It plays sounds, hurried footsteps on different surfaces, labored breathing, flint and steel clicking, the rustle of pages turning, then a long dragging scratch, like something had damaged a vinyl record from the inside while it was still playing. So players ran it through a spectrogram. Inside the audio, they found two things: a number sequence that reads 12-4-18, which is how C418, the game's composer, signs his work. They also found a face, pixelated, like a Minecraft character, with empty spaces where pupils should be. The face had no beard, which some argued meant it was Herobrine, since the character still retained Steve's original bearded design from before Beta 1, while this face did not. C418 was asked directly about this. He said it had nothing to do with Herobrine. He said he could not say much more than that. That was, by any reasonable measure, the wrong thing to say if the goal was to end the conversation. The broader theory that developed over years was that Disc 11 and Disc 13 are connected. Disc 13, a distorted ambient track, seems to end with the sound of an explosion. Disc 11 begins with someone already running. The scratch at the end of Disc 11 is the disc itself being damaged by the blast. The person running on Disc 11 is running from whatever caused the explosion on Disc 13. The two discs play a story in sequence that the game never explains. C418's official description for Disc 13 on his Bandcamp, in the liner notes of Minecraft Volume Alpha, reads, "No human was harmed in the making of this recording." By 2013, Herobrine ranked 46th on Guinness World Records poll for the top 50 video game villains of all time. A character who had never appeared in any official version of any game, who had no code, who had never been added to anything. He placed above real villains from finished games, voted there entirely by players who had spent years being scared of something that was not there. But underneath all of this, an important problem was developing, because the piece of evidence that had convinced more people than anything else in 2010 had silently disappeared, and most people had not noticed yet. Livestream.com deleted the files. Nobody had archived the Copeland stream properly. All that remained were 2 screenshots taken by a forum user named Calasmere, some written descriptions from people who claimed to remember watching live, and the myth that had grown large enough that most people no longer needed the original evidence. For over a decade, fans tried to reconstruct what had actually happened on that stream. Some concluded Copeland had retextured a door texture. Others said it must have been a mod. A small number were genuinely convinced that the stream had captured something real and that its deletion was part of a cover-up. The original Minecraft forum thread about it ran 35 pages before going cold. Search efforts launched and stalled repeatedly. A player named Enderboss25 spent 8 months actively hunting for the footage. The Wayback Machine had nothing useful. He contacted livestream.com directly, but they required the original uploader's consent before sharing any archived data. The problem was that Copeland had disappeared from the internet entirely. No active profiles, no activity across any platform, 10 straight years of silence. But then they found something. Enderboss25 found an archived Steam group that Copeland had created in 2010. He traced the account through a username change. He sent a message into what could have been a dead inbox, but Copeland actually replied. He handed over the original world file from the stream and explained in a direct email to the Minecraft wiki exactly what he had done. The effect was a painting, not a door, not a mod. He had spent time in Photoshop before the stream printing Herobrine's face onto a painting texture. Placed that painting directly inside the doorway of the room he planned to enter. Spent almost 2 hours building tension before walking in, screamed, and ended the stream. The world file was real. Enderboss25 went into it. He later described stepping inside for the first time as terrifying, knowing the impact this singular map had on the community, and now being the first person to walk around in it since the stream. Enderboss25 produced a recreation of the stream using the original world and Copeland's account of events. The truth was documented, but the actual footage remained gone. That changed on July 14, 2024. A YouTuber named Blamiton uploaded a documentary about the search for the Copeland stream, and it actually got pretty good views. But in that audience was someone who would go on to play a big role in our story here. Meet Brutal Lilfjump. Brutal Lilfjump had watched the stream live in 2010 on livestream.com on a machine that was probably struggling to handle it. And after it ended, they had downloaded it. They had backed it up privately to their own YouTube channel and then walked away from the Minecraft community entirely for years. They had no idea the footage was considered lost. They had no idea anyone was looking for it. The day after Blamiton Jorge's documentary aired, Brutal Lilfjump read the comments, realized what they had on their hard drive, and made the videos public. On July 15, 2024, 14 years after Copeland's stream first aired, people watched him walk through that door for the first time. The moment is at 20 minutes and 42 seconds. A painting on a wall, flat, wooden, obvious in daylight and hindsight. He runs out of frame, the stream cuts. The comments came immediately. Some people felt the mystery had finally closed. Others realized that the painting, small and pixelated and framed in the doorway at that resolution, looked almost nothing like what they had imagined for 14 years. Their herobrine had been bigger than a painting, scarier, more deliberate. The stream was real now, which meant their version of it was gone. The stream being recovered was the final piece of the original evidence chain. But it was not the most impressive piece of detective work done on Herobrine's behalf. That had already happened 3 years earlier with a screenshot, a seed, and an enormous amount of donated computing time. Every Minecraft world generates from a seed, a long numerical string that tells the game precisely how to construct every hill, every tree, every stone layer. With the right seed, you can rebuild the exact same world and walk to the exact same spot, stand in the same fog, look at the same hill from the same angle. A volunteer group called Minecraft at Home decided to find the seed from the original screenshot. The photo with the chicken, the hill, and the figure in the background that was never supposed to be there. The process was not simple. They were reverse engineering a specific terrain from a single image taken in an early alpha version of the game. They analyzed the rotation of individual block surface textures, because block tops in that version rotate and the pattern is seed dependent. They calculated where chunk borders would need to fall based on how the terrain lines up at the edges. They mapped the shape and placement of every tree in the frame. And they accounted for a bug specific to Minecraft's alpha build that caused leaf blocks to decay over time, which meant the world in the screenshot looked different from how it had looked when first generated. They were not just finding a seed, they were finding a seed as it existed at a specific moment in a world that had been quietly changing since it was created. The project started on September 5, 2020. On January 16, 2021, at approximately 12:21 in the morning UTC, a member named Andrew555 found it. These are the exact chords, seed, and Minecraft version for anyone who wants to have a look. Enable historical versions in the Minecraft Java launcher. Select Alpha 1.0.16. Use the prepared world file from the Minecraft at Home site and walk to those coordinates. The hill is there. The terrain matches the photograph. The fog sits the same way. You are standing in the exact location where someone with a slow computer and a tiny render distance looked into the fog and thought they saw a cow. So yeah, they found it. But what now? Here is everything that is certain. The game code has never contained a herobrine entity. Notch denied it publicly dozens of times across Twitter, IRC, email, and live events. The original post was anonymous and unverifiable. Copeland admitted the hoax in writing. The stream was a retextured painting. The screenshot was edited. The seed was found and confirmed empty. Disc 11 was explained by its own composer as having nothing to do with herobrine. The most complete theory about what is on Disc 11 involves a person running from a creeper in a cave, which is very Minecraft and not at all supernatural. There is a real Minecraft account with the username herobrine. It exists. It has bought the game. It has never attended a Minecon event and has no event cape. It is just someone who happens to have that name, probably spending every server session being followed around by players, hoping to witness something impossible. Mojang removed herobrine from game changelogs more than 30 times across Java Edition, Bedrock Edition, Xbox 360 Edition, and Scrolls, a completely separate game. In Minecraft's 10th anniversary update, a codec appears in-game credited to herobrine. It decodes into a riddle. In the 15-year journey update, the number of the original seed appears at the very start of the alpha minigame. It is visible if you turn around before taking your first step. After 15 years of official denials, they kept putting him back in. Herobrine worked because Minecraft in 2010 was the perfect environment for a myth. The game had no story, no explanation for what you were doing there, no history for the world, no lore, no guidance. Just procedurally generated terrain, extending out to whatever your computer could handle, and fog where everything else should have been. Your brain was already filling in what the game was not showing you. It was doing it every time you dug down and heard the ambient cave sounds kick in from nowhere. Every time you surfaced and could not quite remember whether that hill had been there before. The original question, what is in the fog, is one human brains have never handled well. We are not built for that kind of open uncertainty. A figure that looks like a person standing still at the edge of what you can see registers as a threat before the thinking part of the brain can evaluate whether it is real or not. That response is older than language. Herobrine happened to live exactly at the boundary between what the game would show and what it would not. That is why Copeland's stream worked on people who suspected it was fake. That is why the myth survived every debunking, every developer statement, every patch note removal. That is why a volunteer research team spent months triangulating a world seed from a single edited screenshot taken in 2010, and why the moment they found it, Mojang wrote one more removal into a changelog. He was never there, but the fog was real. The fog is always real, and you are never completely sure what is standing in it until you are close enough to see clearly. And by then, the render distance has expanded and there is nothing there. And you are just standing in an empty field wondering if you actually saw something or if your brain invented it because it was already looking. That is the full story of Herobrine. From the screenshot taken on July 30th, 2010, to the painting that fooled an entire community for 14 years. From the first anonymous post on 4chan to the official patch notes of the most played game in history. Herobrine never existed, and yet we all once believed in him.